Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to The Law. This is your legal light. It is your health law. Today, we pay attention to a very important issue. It has to do with the Constitution. That is the supreme law of Ghana, and it is the document that gives birth to almost everything that we can count on, from the executive, the legislature, to judiciary, and all the institutions of governance. They exist because they were birthed or created by the Constitution and are supposed to be regulated by the Constitution. Between 2010 and 2012, citizens expressed views for sweeping changes to this 1992 Constitution. A document was produced for changes to be done by the Constitution Review Commission. We spent some $6.2 million in the Professor Albert Fiajo-led commission to review the document. Unfortunately, that document has been gathering dust. It's a 1,000-page document and supposed to be the biggest socio-political data that this country has ever been gifted. Well, if you thought the question of Constitution review has been forgotten, no. Fix the Country thinks that the way to fix the country begins with the umbilical cord, the Constitution. It needs an overhaul. Like President Akufo-Addo used to say even before he became a candidate for elections. We'll be right back with our guest who has such wide experience and knowledge in this area and actually has something to do with this process, leading the Fix the Country campaign for overhaul of the Constitution.
More than 1,000 Ghanaians have been killed by COVID-19.
All the people here were killed by COVID.
Over 100,000 cases recorded and health workers stretched.
There's still a lot out there that we don't know about this virus. We don't know how the next variant will look like.
And yet many still say all this is a hoax.
And enough so-called corona.
If I can wash my hands with alcohol and I'll be free, and I'm taking alcohol into my body, then I'm secure.
COVID-19, Truth versus Lies, a Joy News Hotline documentary by Justice Baidu.
The AM is more than the start of a brand new day. It is more than the sunrise rushing over the horizon. The AM is more than the fresh breeze of a new dawn. The AM is the millions of great, exciting kaleidoscope of thoughts, stories, concepts, and news that awakens the mind as the body unwinds to a show. The AM Show. It is a cocktail of all the big important stories on events that matter. Let's cut the convention and start a conversation because news is changing. The AM Show. It is worth waking up for.
You're welcome back. This is The Law. It is your legal light and health law. And my guest this afternoon, Oliver Barker-Vormawor. He has great experience in this area, and he is with the Cambridge University. Thank you so very much for your time this afternoon on The Law, sir.
Thank you for having me. I hope this is a conversation that a lot of people are, I expect that a lot of people are looking forward to it, and so I'm happy to join the conversation on it.
Right. So today I am very certain that people will be giving a compelling reason or compelling reasons why the Constitution must be overhauled rather than piecemeal amendments. Tell us, why do you take the view that this is how fixing the country will start and start right?
So thank you for that. I think that from the very beginning of our democracy, and I say this in 1992, one of the biggest conversations around the 1992 Constitution and whether it should be approved in a referendum was whether or not this was the best framework for putting in place a democracy. And it was a big deal for a lot of people to try to get the process right. But there was also a concern that if we get too bogged down in the fine details of what it should be and what the perfect constitutional document would look like, we might delay the transition from a military era into a democracy. And this was big because so many people at the time did not feel that President or Chairman Rawlings at the time was very much committed to opening up the democratic space for us to go into a democracy. And so we adopted a document where we made a lot of assumptions as to what the long term was going to look like. And if you remember, a number of political actors, including the now MPP, boycotted the process, right? So eventually, it was only about 50% of eligible voters that voted for the Constitution. This was about 3.6 million individuals who voted for that document. And I remember Professor Kumado used to say a lot that so many people voted for a document they had never seen, even. You know, so this is a huge deal that we understand that there was something, or there's an original sin, or there's an original defect about the document which we needed to fix somewhere along the line.
And it is not just you saying it. The Africa Peer Review Mechanism spoke about this. President Kufuor spoke about it. Akufo-Addo spoke about it and continued and insisted that we needed an overhaul of the Constitution because this was a Constitution for a dictator, so to speak.
Yeah.
And almost all the statesmen that I have become familiar with who have had something to say about the Constitution have said that this Constitution is not what you need. For example, in recent times, or for almost a decade now, you would have heard Professor Raymond Atuguba, you would have heard Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, all saying we have an imperial precedent. So why are we still where we are, not feeling that and fast-tracking this process of changing the Constitution to begin to fix this country?
So, you know, it's a good question that I don't necessarily have the answers to. I think yesterday I was reading a piece about the American constitutional review processes, which talked about constitution changes often come in waves. And that they're constitutional moments, they call it. That there's a huge demand for those reforms. And if you don't capitalize on that moment, the moment is quickly lost. And that has happened. We've been presented with the opportunity, I suppose, time and time again, which we do not take adequate advantage of. So, for instance, in the immediate days after we go into the democracy, that conflict between Accra and President Chairman Rawlings was one of the first constitutional moments we were presented with. And we did a very piecemeal amendments to it, which essentially increased the powers of the president, because there was an issue between the president and the vice president, and we depressed the vice president's role in the executive. And then we fast forward to the 2008 elections, where all the political parties were agreed that the way forward is really dealing with this issue. You know, at that point you had, you know, the NDC had done their 2000, and then the MPP had done their 8 years. And there was a broad consensus that we needed to change things. And that consensus then led President Mills. And if you actually remember the debates leading into that elections, it was actually the current president who mooted the idea of a Constitution Review Commission. That was something that he was going to put in place when he gets elected.
Yes.
In that election, Professor Mills was elected, and he immediately then put in place a process. And it had on that commission, you had the former Attorney General Menka Prem. I'm trying to remember his name. It's passed now. Who was a Deputy Attorney General under the PP government.
Okay.
So and then you had persons on the PNC, and you have now the current EC from civil society.
Yes.
On the commission. So it was supposed to be a representative commission that would finally move the conversation forward.
You had the Apia Menkas.
Apia Menkas is what I was trying to remember.
You had now Justice Kwamang, who is in the Supreme Court. Yes.
On it as well, you had, and even that, after that, then you had the Constitution Review Implementation Committee, which I'll come to briefly. But the idea then is that since there was a huge political consensus around this, let's not make this about the NDC. And it has to be all the political actors involved. And that's why the consultations were very wide. And we had consultations across the length and breadth of the country. And then we had what we call the mini consultation, which was supposed to be with President Kufuor, former President Rawlings, you had the current president, then who was then former Attorney General. And all those persons came before the commission. Georgina Wood, who was Chief Justice as well. And I have done a fair bit now going back into all those readings and seeing all of them made significant programmatic suggestions as to how we should change the Constitution and several elements of it. In fact, the proposals for reform of the Constitution, there are very few aspects of the Constitution that those reforms do not touch.
Oh, I see. So let's go to why this is the single most important item on Fix the Country's agenda. So let's begin. Why should we amend? Why should we overhaul this Constitution?
So one of the things we are saying is that because a lot of our political problems and some of the assumptions we have made in putting in place this particular Constitution have clearly failed. One, we want a limited government. By that we mean an executive that is checked. So we wanted a Constitution that thrives on a system of checks and balances. But if today so many of the political actors or persons are calling it an executive or an imperial presidency, then we have failed in properly transition from a dictatorship into a democracy. Then if we are also benching the entirety of our Constitution on a particular set of arrangements where certain institutions check each other, and the way in which politicians have subverted that process is to make sure that you subvert the institutions themselves. So one of the gambles we make is that the parliament will check the executive, then the judiciary will check both of them.
Yes.
But in fact, we are now a lot of times we talk about a scratch your back arrangement that exists between the executive and the parliament.
Instead of checking
but
each
we also
other.
have to question whether or not, if we wanted the two institutions to check themselves, whether they have done that. One of the first things. The second thing is that we wrote a document which cut out the people from the process. And by this I mean is, when you take the Constitution, there's no place for how people can make suggestions for reviewing or changing any parts of the Constitution, which is what we call the popular initiative. That doesn't exist. We've cut out the people from the lawmaking process itself because we say it's a representative government, meaning that even if you want to do a petition to Parliament, you can't do it. Parliament now would write back to you and say, that is not the proper way. The proper way to do it, by which they mean, is that a member of Parliament must take it and lay it on the table and move it as their own motion. So it's not a people's thing.
When you say the popular initiative, are you looking, for example, at what we know pertains in Kenya, where citizens can actually, begin the process to change the Constitution, rather than something that must start from the executive?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the things we are saying is that in terms of all these assumptions we've made as to how to move our democracy forward, if it has become easy to all you have to do is corrupt those institutions or take charge of them, then you have completely taken over our democracy. We can prevent that by creating pathways for the people to come into the process. And that pathway has to be one, through the popular initiative in changing the constitution, but also through the lawmaking process. That they can directly intervene, like happens in the UK, where you do a petition process and if you get 100,000 signatures, the parliament must debate the issue.
Okay.
That's one thing we don't have. Another ways in which you can bring the people back into the process is that in the US, they have what they call the legislative hearings. We now have introduced sort of memoranda which people can submit, but you have to have those hearings, and it's required that you must meet all those groups in the ways in which people come before them and defend these ideas, and you have all these televised before any law is passed. That brings again the people into the process.
Right.
Then you have, recall elections, where persons being dissatisfied with you can gather votes and demand that a by-election be held on that. So there's so many ways in which you can bring
we
the
saw
people back to
we saw an example of the recall recently in the US.
Absolutely, in California, right? So that's different ways in which, because we have certain assumptions which do not allow the people to come into the process, we don't improve our democracy with the energies of these people who do not necessarily want to align with political parties. So a lot of our best intellectual brain are outside of the political process.
So
we have to find a way to bring them in.
So that example, very, very, very interesting. That I elect an MP, but I'm practically unable to check them properly, so to speak, and I can't remove them somewhat until 4 years is over. And we also say that there is a power for Parliament to impeach a sitting president when they commit certain sins. However, we know that by the architecture of our constitution, you will unlikely that you can get a parliament impeaching the president, because the parliament often will be a majority of the people from that party.
Exactly. So that's one example, right? And even in the impeachment process, you can bring popular initiative into that process and write it in. So we have to take all the things we know about the ways in which we've done things in the past,
right,
and be willing to subject all of that to scrutiny. But a bigger question I want to answer is, a lot of times people say, why are you embracing the call for a new constitution and not a review or a piecemeal amendment? And I don't want to
before you go there, before you get to that point, I don't want to forget this, that the popular initiative in the various forms that you have talked about are important, because the people that we have empowered who can now initiate the processes are comfortable with what the Constitution gives them. It gives them all the protections, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that, how you cannot, arrest, an MP and so on and so forth, the privileges that they all enjoy, when it comes to what we have spoken about, the ex gratia that they get so upset that people are angry about but can't seem to do anything about. Right, so now let's go to the point.
A little bit in relation to that, because this is an interesting point. It has become easy, I've said, that once you look at our constitution, all you have to decide is that there's a clear, distinct political class, which all you have to do is to sort them out. Once you sort that class out, you can do anything with our democracy. And so we have to create avenues to break that. Yeah, and that's why we have to be intentional about what we want to prevent in an elite. Okay. There's a book by Samuel Huntington about the end of history and about democracy, where it talks about the only way in which a dictatorship can sustain itself, that there has to be a certain elite consensus around certain ideas, and it can happen in a democracy. That if you find ways in which the people have no ways to change anything of their own, then you can create that dictatorship even in a democracy. And one of the things we hear consistently about Fix the Country is, but what can we do? All the things you are saying, parliamentarians have to take it up. The executive have to do it. Yeah. We, the citizens, cannot do anything of our own. By that, they see no pathways to reforming, and so they check out. So that's the bigger risk there,
Okay.
But why the new constitution rather than a review process? So there are three main arguments around here. One is those proposing piecemeal amendments, one at a time. Then there are those who are calling for the review in the nature of what's happened in the Constitution Review Commission. And we calling for the change in the Constitution. And of all these options, I know people have a reaction to new as that being the most difficult. But in fact, when you look at the processes, that is the easiest and simplest approach. Let's take the piecemeal one. In the last Constitution Review Commission's work, there were 400 recommendations that were made. About half of those concerned direct constitutional changes that needed to be made to the constitutional document itself. Now, if we were to do a piecemeal review amendment, it will mean that 200 times, presidents would have to try to sponsor a bill through Parliament. Parliament would have to consider it, and then we have to go through the Council of State and then go to referendum for those that require referendum for 200 times at different points. For instance, I know Professor Kwasi has a bill around dual citizenship, which is still lagging and has not been considered. Now, if it's a private member bill, the questions around whether or not it imposes a charge on the consolidated fund would arise again. Because, of course, if it necessitates a referendum, would obviously say it imposes a charge on the consolidated fund. It will not go. But even that, it has to pass through the Business Committee of Parliament for them to accept to even put it on the agenda. So the time it would take to even consider 200 amendments to our Constitution would be forever and ever happen. That's one thing. Secondly, we have to remember that a piecemeal amendment process is not pro-poor. What I mean is that it's only persons with some proximity to political elite who can get a bill they have drafted considered by those in Parliament for them. So a larger majority of people may want a particular thing, but it would never get any uptake because they don't have the kind of friendships and the networks to compel politicians to do something in the people's interest. So that piecemeal process would be forever, it would never happen. Even if you take one of the oldest constitutions in this world, which is the American Constitution, it has had about 27 amendments in its entire history. There's no way we can do 200 changes to our constitution within any particular framework that ensures that it's a holistic change that delivers what people are asking for. The second one is the review one, which people are saying that, well, we've done the Constitution Review Commission. Why not either go back and pick that report or go through the same process again?
But even before that, in the Constitution Review process, you had drafts that contained 41 entrenched provisions. And I remember, and you had 56 non-entrenched provisions. And I remember that the debate became that, how are you going to put the 41 entrenched provisions to a referendum? It will suggest that you may need to put one question at a time. And that is going to be such a difficult, almost unattainable feat to take.
So it's one of the things I was going to highlight as well in talking about the review process again. First of all, let's remember that when the first review was done, it was done based on the Commission of Inquiry powers under the Constitution. By our Supreme Court, whatever is produced from that Constitution review process is only an advice to the executive.
That's right.
And an advice which they can take or reject. And this is exactly what happened in the first round, where after the entirety of Ghanaians had been consulted in the process and certain recommendations made, the certain politicians then, and the NDC at the time, by just a pen, without explaining why, said we accept this and we do not accept this.
Yes.
Some of them they did not even comment on, so you don't even know the status of whether it's in fact been accepted or not.
For example, it had been recommended that these DCE matters, MMDCE matters, should be by election. And then they decided to vary it, to say that the president should nominate a certain number of people for the election. Well, if the president's choice is what I'm going to vote over, then I'm back to the same thing. And then this very basic right of the 48-hour rule, if you are arrested by police, they cannot detain you for more than 48 hours. The recommendation was that the best standard is to have that done in 24 hours. So if you are arrested, police cannot keep you for more than 24 hours. The white paper said, no, we disagree. it should remain
Yeah.
48 hours. Why?
Yeah. No, so that's exactly the thing, right? And even that reminds me about this arrest thing, where I say our police do not make the distinction between who is being arrested, who is a person of interest invited to assist, or who is a suspect. It's once everything, you are just arrested. And that's one of the things we wanted to deal with, that will compel them to make those distinctions.
Right.
But so you have a situation whereby they can just by a stroke of pen decide we like this or we don't like this. One of the examples is there was an overwhelming call around the National Development Plan, because a lot of Ghanaians want a clear direction to their economic anxieties. And at the end of the process, the Constitution Review Commission said, listen, we had a constitution that was only focused on the politics. So let's move the constitution from a political document to a developmental document. So that was the mainstay of this whole process.
Right.
And that was rejected. So the risk of just summary rejection continues to haunt a constitution review process. But beyond that, and that's what you saw with the election of DCEs, even after the white paper said we want it in a particular way, you had the Nana administration which took those same recommendations and decided that, okay, an overwhelming majority of Ghanaians said they did not want a partisan process. But yet we are going to compel you to vote to elect DCE and even the entire assembly people on the basis of political parties. There was a huge outcry against this.
Right.
Actually, I was having a conversation with somebody and the person said to me that the outcry was led by you, Samson, and that when you came out against it, that the entirety of the country went against it in a particular way. But this was an overwhelming popular initiative, about rejecting this. And for what did the government do? They did not listen to the people and go back to the Constitution Review Commission report. They just took it away entirely. And so if you can hand over the entirety of the process to politicians, then it means that we are never going to be able to get the right things done which do not align with their political interests. And that's one of the fear around that.
Okay.
But you also highlighted another point around the review thing. The whole debate when we were finishing the Constitution Review Commission is, how are you going to get 40 recommendation and trend provisions adopted? Do you do one bill which people go and vote on, or does it have to be individual and single bills?
Because they have to vote yes or no.
Yes, on this. And there was a whole risk that even if you did that, somebody could challenge this, that citizens are not sufficiently informed on this, and for which reason it's an unconstitutional process. That risk continues to exist. Then there was a committee that was set up in the Attorney General's office to look at this. And they said that, no, it has to be one individual bills adopted for each of them. So you have come back to the piecemeal process again, for which reason we are not able to move on any of the issues because we decided that it can't work as a holistic document.
Okay. Right.
So we are saying that, okay,
yes.
All this considered, if we are going to be caught in the piecemeal amendment review, which none of them is really going to lead us forward, then why not just come together, redraft everything holistically and taking everything into consideration and put a new document before Ghanaians?
Right.
And say, this is the document we have drafted. Do you approve of it or not? And if they say no, then we go back to the 1992 Constitution. If they say yes, then like the Kenyan process did, it includes a language that says that after this is adopted, the old Constitution is repealed.
Okay. That's
what I'm saying, that a new Constitution conversation is both about the content of the document and also about the process of it.
All right. So
and the process clearly shows us that the easier way is the new document.
Yeah, let's take some themes within the Constitution and see if people will have a reason, even though the reasons have been advanced over this period, as we have spoken about, will have a reason to join, fix the country for an overhaul rather than a piecemeal, amendment. We spoke about an imperial president, overbearing executive. Nothing gets done in this country unless a president steps in. A president is appointing in excess of 6,000 people, we are told, into boards and whatever. How do you ensure that the right things are done?
So when we had the first conversation around it, and this conversation we keep hearing a lot of time is, why won't the country just come up with their list of articles and let's see which ones there are? And we have been cautious that no, you cannot treat the Constitution like a simple legislation. That you take Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. You have to look at it as, this is the particular framework we put in place. What do we intend to achieve with that particular framework? Around the executive, we can go back to the 1969 process. One of our biggest problems after the Nkrumah regime was that no executive power, we have to keep it in check. We have to reduce it in a particular way. So we know that from our constitutional history, we have always been worried about an overbearing executive.
We have said that our constitutions had been made in such a way that the president had power to do everything except change a man into a woman.
Into a woman, absolutely. And that's one thing which, from British constitutional rule, we wanted to take away that power from Parliament. So we created a limited Parliament, but we created an overbearing executive that assumed all those powers. So we are saying that when you take our constitutional document now, and what people are calling a presidential or imperial presidency, it comes from certain things that we have put into the Constitution. But some things which also exist outside of the Constitution. One, it's about the nature of executive power itself. So in 1969, they decided to divide this up. You have a prime minister and a head of state that was ceremonial. We decided to go a different route and took this particular way. So there's a question that we have to answer as to whether or not a presidential-like president, as we have it, is the best way to ensure that the president has limited powers. Because we know from history that when you use a presidential system, you always have a winner-takes-all kind of government.
That's right.
So how do we deal with that and not only just pick one provision at a time, but rethink the structure of it? But even if you take one provision at a time, there are certain provisions you want to relook at again. For instance, a lot of questions have been asked about why do we grant presidential immunity? That you have to either bring them within a 3-year period or forever hold your peace.
That is that the Constitution, and let's explain to our audience, that is that by the Constitution, you cannot sue a president, you can't take any action against them whilst they are in office until and unless they have left office. And when they leave office, you have within 3 years to take any action against them where they have personally not been able to do certain things, or they have been negligent or derelict in some duty. If the 3 years expires after they leave office, you can't take them on. So if you discover that they have done some corrupt deal or something, you can't take them on. What do you say is the problem with that?
Let's take the example of what just happened in France. The French President Sarkozy had now been found guilty for campaign finance violations, and for which reason he's been sentenced for 1 year with being held in house arrest. This happened over 3 years after he left office. In Ghana, this would be impossible.
That's right.
This is the first one. Secondly, one of the things a lot of people said, people who are not constitutional experts or initiated about the Constitution, when we went to the field in Takoradi was, if a president is elected and has good intention, why are we giving them immunity after they leave office? And this is a person breaking it down to be in a way which is not legalized, right?
Right.
If a person is coming into office with the intention to do good for us, why do we shield them from or immunize them? And a lot of that is also around the thinking around Rawlings. And because of how long he had been in office as head of state, there was a concern that he would be, criminal prosecution would be brought against him at some point. This is why the MPP then was talking about the constitution which was created for Rawlings alone.
That's right.
So that's one of the things we need to look into.
Okay.
In many places, a lot of people have said about the civil proceedings. The reason why it is put in place is that you don't want to distract the president while he's in office. But people have asked about criminal. If a president, for instance, kills the wife, while in office, should we not consider criminal proceedings against the person?
So there should be an exception.
Should you only be left? Yes. So there should be certain exceptions that we have to think about, even in thinking of that particular framework. Then there's the general question about presidential appointing powers, as you have talked about, where we have known that the appointing process creates a sense of allegiance to a person. And it happens in so many ways in which I can give you practical examples. One, you remember an incident that happened when E.T. Mensah's son at Infantipim claimed that he had been kidnapped. It was a huge issue in this country. what didn't generate a lot of controversy is that there was a leaked report from the BNI, where the BNI had advised that they should dissuade the police from doing anything about it because it would affect the electoral fortunes of the NDC. Now, this is the head of the BNI who had been appointed by a politician, which had essentially transformed the BNI into another wing of a political party. Should our institutions be concerned about the electoral fortunes of a political party? You can only have that when persons who have been appointed are still consider themselves to be political actors. For which reason, the way in which the institutions are directed, it's always within the logic of don't do anything to make the party look bad.
That's right.
You have the same situation that has happened currently that I was surprised about. That you have the head of the Environmental Protection Agency claiming that Fix the Country should be investigated regarding what the kidnapping of a woman in Takrady. And I'm wondering, how does a person who is an Environmental Protection Agency head come and say something like this? And I think that the incentive is around we've elected persons, we've appointed persons who do not see themselves transitioning the role of technical person,
right?
But viewing themselves as always being beholden to political power,
or the appointing power and privilege to the president to make these appointments is so unfettered, such that the president can appoint the dumbest person and you can't do anything about it, really.
Yes.
Okay.
You can, yes.
Right. So we take
let me give you another example. The Executive Council of the University, there was a whole, when the bill was being introduced, when they know that the Constitution does not allow the president to be, chancellor of the university, all the University Council you have to do is that you appoint the entirety of the University Council, for which reason you can do the president's bidding without him particularly being there. These are some of the concerns people have had. But let me tell you something around this. A lot of those problems is not necessarily the Constitution itself, but because the Constitution allows it. And I say this because when you combine all the appointments made under the Constitution by the president, the one Parliament allows the president to make go beyond what the Constitution allows. So we don't have any framework that prevents Parliament from enlarging the powers of the president at his own expense. And you had that same problem with the COVID-19 imposition of restrictions that a lot of people were talking about.
All right. So just hold on briefly. Let's take a quick break. We'll return to continue this conversation. And as we always do on the law, you would always have the opportunity to contribute and ask questions. As it does appear, we will need to do a second round during which you will have a lot of time to throw your questions at our guest, Oliver Barker-Vormawor. We'll be right back.
The journey to the top is a long one.
The inspiration started from childhood.
It's a dream come true for the world. In the area where me I grow up, it's a big man thing to be bold.
It's been a process. Yeah. And we thank God we are here today.
Everyone has a story.
What have you been doing differently?
Oh, well, it's how I relate with my people and how I deliver what they ask me to deliver. And it gives them reason to give me an opportunity to continue. And like they say, we are sending you to go and do something. So go for it. And if you've sent somebody and he's doing a good job, you're not quick to change it.
E-Vibes with Becky on this channel.
If you needed, say, a toolkit for the journey to a successful career, what would be in that kit? Well, I can tell you for a fact that one of the most important components of that kit would be a good mentor. Many successful people attribute at least a part of their success to having a guide that helps focus their dreams. You need to meet your mentors with ease, and that is why the Meet Your Mentor TV show is here. This show will help you locate guides on your path that will lead you to a successful career. So why don't you join me, Daniela Ejuasare, as I bring the right mentors to the doorstep of the youth.
You're welcome back. This is The Law. It is your legal light. It is your help law. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini, and my guest is Oliver Barker-Vormawor, who I, without any shred of a doubt, can say is a constitutional expert. He does several other things in the legal business or legal fraternity, and he is with the Cambridge University presently. Now, he's taking us through the broad reasons grounding an overhaul of the Constitution rather than a piecemeal amendment of the Constitution. And we are beginning to go into some themes because it is difficult, it is not helpful to take an article each and say, this is the problem with this article, and therefore that is why we have to amend the Constitution. He's looking at taking a number of articles into one theme and dealing with them to give you a reason why an overhaul of the Constitution is the most important cornerstone, fundamental, ground to begin to fix this country. So he's spoken about the imperial presidency, overbearing executive, and the appointment issues and how all of that is flawed. But he began also with the citizens who lack power to effect the change the way they want to in lawmaking, because it is only the parliament and the executive that presently can do these things. And they don't have the incentive to do them because the Constitution itself has too many protections for them. Now, we will continue with some of the themes and giving you in all 10 solid reasons why the Constitution must be overhauled rather than reviewed in piecemeal. And like I indicated, obviously, today we will not be able to conclude. So we will give another opportunity, then we'll conclude very quickly and give you so much time, like we did with the last show that we did on the police and their excesses and how to sanction them. Then you can ask all your questions and get all your answers. Now, so Oliver, you were trying to give a further example to emphasize sort of arbitrariness or the problematic situation we find ourselves as far as the exercise of the powers of the president is concerned. And you are using COVID-19.
Yes. So one of the things I was saying is that our Constitution lacks the mechanisms that checks Parliament itself from growing the powers of the presidency. And that's a concern that we need to deal specifically in our case. And the COVID-19 examples gives us that. Even though we have a mechanism for emergency powers in the Constitution, Parliament went ahead and passed the Imposition of Restrictions Act, which essentially allows the president to rule by decree without reference to Parliament. And a lot of people have already complained about even the constitutionality of a Parliament that says, you don't have to come back to us. Do as you please every 3 months. And all you have to do is issue a new executive instrument. Now, I remember, and you perhaps also remember this, around the time when Face the Country wanted to go on a demonstration and trying to find what is the latest executive instrument was a problem. as to which one was binding. I remember having to call the AG's office whether there was a new one. We weren't even sure. Even the day we went to court, it was the Attorney General that produced the new executive instrument. We didn't know where it came from. The Assembly President didn't have an example of it. Those problems are problems that existed in Nkrumah's regime, where under the PDA, the Preventive Detention Act, they could issue an executive instrument even in the morning of the judge before the judge sits. These were some of the things we wanted to highlight, but we are back again there, and Parliament is allowing this to happen. Because again, it is easy with the nature of our Parliament. Once you have a majority, you can do anything with it. So we are saying that if you review the Constitution, you put a framework that prevents these things from happening, you can stop them. I know that some things around some of the problems with our Constitution are sexier because they are the most talked about. For instance, the number of ministers the president appoints.
Right.
And this is a huge issue that a lot of people talk about. There's no check on that framework.
And people have suggested before time that you will not get into a situation where any president would think about going up to 100 ministers. And here we were faced with Akufo-Addo appointing in excess of 110 ministers.
Yeah.
And that was so absurd.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. How do you cure that problem with a constitutional, overhaul?
So one of the things the Constitution does, that it limits the number of people who are cabinet ministers. It says 10 to 19. And so the same framework and thinking can be brought to just limiting the president from not going beyond a certain number. So that's the cap on the ministers. And this conversation has been in the space for a long time. So there's a ways in which we can cap what the presidency can do around these appointments that we have to be able to sit down and look at all of that together. The second issue I want to consider is Parliament itself and the arrangement that makes Parliament weak. And one of the things I want to draw people's attention to is that there's an interlinkage between what makes the executive stronger and what makes Parliament weak or the judiciary ineffective. So they are all interconnected problems. So one of the things we said in coming to the 1992 Constitution was that we wanted a Parliament that would be an effective check on the president. But one of the flaws, which is an original sin of the Constitution, is that we said that not too much check on the presidency. This was actually an express thing, because they went back to the 1979 example, where the only time in our democracy or in the country's history where Parliament said no to a president was when the 79 Parliament rejected Professor Bennett, the finance minister's budget. And the concern in this case is that we don't want that situation in the 1992 Constitution where Parliament can say no to the president. So let's create the hybrid arrangement, which makes it such that the majority of ministers will come from within Parliament. The result was that, and a lot of parliamentarians themselves have talked about this. Bagbe, for instance, in his speech when he became Speaker, and as the longest serving member of our Parliament, raised this particular issue as well. That what we know is that it puts parliamentarians in a perpetual position of auditioning to become ministers. And so for which reason, they are less inclined to hold the executive to account. Everybody wants to become a minister. And in fact, fun fact, this problem arises in the Constitution Review Commission process. When Parliament came before us, one of the things they asked for is that persons who are serving as committee heads and ranking members of committees should receive the same remuneration as ministers of state. But I'll talk about this again when we come to the inequities of the salary structure we have.
Right.
Because we come to understand that the ministerial role is so juicy that we all want to get in there. For which reason, there are no career parliamentarians who just want to become parliamentarians.
Right.
And the presidency then uses this as a mechanism then to make Parliament subservient to it. And so many people have talked about ending this. Unfortunately, when you come to even the Constitution Review Commission's report, that commission, and this is one of the reasons why we wanted the whole Constitution Review process to come into a constituent assembly type rather than given to a select body again. But a commission, and I say this as a person who was a member, who was one of the researchers to it, was so sensitive about the fear that politicians will reject the report that they decided that let's give them something they want.
Oh, I see.
By saying that the president should be given the free hand to appoint as many as he wanted. So he can even appoint 100% of his ministers from parliament.
It doesn't matter.
So we need to
that,
solve
it doesn't matter that the overwhelming 800 and something, or is it 8,000 plus views?
6,000.
Yes, views that you received said we don't want this to continue. But this is the situation that we ended up with.
The commission was worried
this is a good note on which we can terminate the discussion for today. We will do the final part 2 and then open up the lines for everyone to join with their questions on why or why not the Constitution ought to be overhauled. I am so grateful and thankful to you, Oliver Barker-Vormawor. Thank you so very much. This has been The Law.
You as well.
It is your legal light and help law. We'll come your way next week with the second installment and an opportunity for you to join the discussion. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini.
Ambassador Cabral Blay Amir, Dr. SKB Asante, Professor Joshua Alavi, Daniel Macaulay, Dr. Akuritinga Ayeni, Enes Kofi Abochi, Kolaga Berry. Good to see you.
Thank you.
What do you make of the current legal system?
Your ability to fight and secure justice is significantly a factor of your legal representation.
When did you develop the love for politics?
It was a dream I had from, I think, 1969-70.
What's your experience?
I was a driver's mate one time in my life.
It is worse when you are a young woman.
I'm coming.
PM Personality Profile with Aisha Ibrahim.
Hello everyone, you're welcome to Health and Vitality with me, Dr. Hannah Lisa Tete. Today we're coming to you live from a public transportation, and this is because during the COVID-19 period it's been very difficult to maintain the safety precautions in public transportation. So today we bring you excerpts of exactly what happens in the public transportation and how we can together help prevent the spread of COVID-19. So before you leave home, make sure that you wash your hand with soap and water, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer, wear your face mask, and make sure that you have an extra face mask in a sealable bag. Carry it along with you because you may need it. Also, if you have sanitizing wipes, please carry them along because you use them to clean or handle the doors and other parts of the car. Make sure that you do not forget your alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Now, if you're going on the journey, you should know exactly how much money you would need for the fare, and make sure that you carry that amount of money. We notice that most of the time the mates collect the money in the bus. So it's advisable that you collect the money at the entrance before the passengers sit inside the bus. Now, if you know that you're going to alight before the final destination, then please sit close to the entrance. Do not sit at the back so that you have to keep touching people as you leave the bus when you have to alight. Make sure that you're wearing your face mask just like everyone is wearing their face mask, and make sure that you encourage others around you to do the same. Practice social distancing in the bus. Please try not to buy anything along the journey. Make sure that if you need to buy something whilst the bus is moving, you interact directly with the seller by sitting at the window. If you have to alight, please make sure that you avoid contact, physical contact, as much as possible.
Hey, madam, when entering into a car, is it important to wear a face mask or not? I just want to know.
So it's very important to wear a face mask as soon as you leave your house and you enter the public space. And the transportation is also included. Wear a face mask to protect yourself and to protect your neighbor and to limit the risk of infection and the spread of the coronavirus. So always wear your face mask.
It's good. Your nose mask is here or not?
Please do not wear your nose mask on your chin because the droplets are spread when you talk or you cough and you sneeze. So from your nose and your mouth, and that's why the nose mask needs to cover your nose and your mouth. Avoid eating on the bus because that would mean that you have to remove your mask, and this could increase your risk of getting infected. Also, limit conversations and arguments and interactions. As you can see, there was a lot of arguments and interactions, even with some not wearing their mask. And this has been noted to be one of the easiest ways in which COVID-19 is spread. To the drivers and the mates, make sure that the windows are open and the car is properly ventilated. Try and use cashless forms of payment. But if there are no cashless forms of payment, make sure that you can have a tray at least to collect your money and to give the change, or collect the money at the entrance before the passengers board. Disinfect the car as much as you can. Use sanitizers to wipe the seats and keep the car as clean as possible. If you can, please keep sanitizers in the car, extra face mask in the car, and encourage people to do the same so that together we can all fight COVID-19 and protect ourselves. As always, my name is Dr. Hannah Lisa. It's bye for now.
As the Multimedia Group celebrates 25 years of excellence, Joy News brings you a series on our most impactful stories, Impact 25.
a beautiful sunny day and it's time for Outlook, and you're watching us on your Joy News TV, also on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144. It's a beautiful sunny day, and you know when it's sunny like this, we can all go out, watch our football, have a great time. Yesterday on Outlook is all about sports. Today on Outlook, we look at the reasons why certain kinds of sports we feel are for different kinds of people. And also, we plunge in and go paintballing. Are you ready for today on Outlook? It's going to be pretty much exciting. You're not even ready for the things I have for you. So yes, in Ghana, when it comes to sports, we're so used to certain kinds of sports. Football, then from football we move to volleyball, then it's handball before we come to basketball. Now these ones I mentioned, football and the rest, yeah, we see that they are meant for everybody. Some of us love football, handball, volleyball at the same time. Some of us like football and basketball. But certain games like golf, when you mention golf, some people think that golf is for, people that are, of a certain particular class. Well, with that notion behind us, we decided to find out more about golf. And if it's for just some people or it's for everyone. Take a look.
It is a thought that more business deals and corporate level relationships have been built and signed off on the green golf courses around the world than many brown and round tables in boardrooms. A small ball, a stick to kick, and small round holes dug in the green turf. These are the key features of the game many associate with the rich, powerful, and the few influential members of most societies. Let's not pretend about it. Golf is expensive.
Don't be scared. Just get close to the ball. Okay. Close your legs a little bit. Come a bit to the left.
So how cheap can we make it without tainting the elegance and prestige associated with the game? Well, we decided to learn about golf. What makes golf so different? Well, the Outlook team went over to the Achimota golf course, and our friend Kwekwasari Fosuhini, an ardent golfer, told us all we needed to know.
No, the body should just let your hands come out from good. So you lift it, and then...
It doesn't have to go too far?
Yeah, so golf in itself is a sport that exercises from your head to your toes.
Wait, don't they just stand there and just push?
So the activity of having to focus, thinking about the ball, taking your posture, everything in that till you swing and hit the ball, exercises everything about your body. And by the time you're done playing an 18-hole golf, you would have done about a 4 hours walk.
Yeah, because
close to about 12,000 steps.
So without even knowing it, you're actually exercising.
Exactly.
Wow. I thought it was one of those sports that, everybody would say is bougie, like, it's for the elite. Certain class of people play golf or, so it's not much of hard work, like going to the gym and carrying metals and, stuff like that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say the secret, but yes, golf is associated with a certain kind of people, not because they are affluent or they are in that elite status, but it's just because of their mentality. Because they have chosen to make time, and then they have chosen to integrate golf in their lifestyle and then make sure that it fits into whatever they do.
Wow.
So it's a mentality thing. Anybody can play golf. Anybody can play golf, but if you get to understand it, it's the sports that you can play from infantry till you're about not able to walk again. You can keep playing from 3 years old, 4 years old, all the way to you're about 90 years.
Really?
And so when you see a group of people choosing it, then that means that they're really looking to do this for the rest of their life.
Wow.
Everyone that starts to play golf always has to start from a place we call the clinic, the golf clinic. Okay. In this sense, is the range.
The range.
So at the range, we have professionals that you sign up with, and then they will teach you the basics of golf, how to grip a club, how to hit the ball, which club you need to select to be able to hit a perfect shot, which posture you need to be in, and all of that. So you do all the practice and training from the range.
Okay.
And obviously after a while doing that, we have a curriculum actually.
Okay. Oh, there's a curriculum?
There is a curriculum, yes.
Really?
Yeah, there is a curriculum. So for you to learn how to play golf, you sign up to the academy. And then you go through the curriculum, starting from how to hold a club, how to grip a club, how to wear your gloves and all of that.
This I will never get.
Yeah, that's my Popeye. I call him Popeye.
Hey, yeah, Popeye.
Yeah.
Hey, this is super cool.
Yeah. I hope you're seeing something unique about every club. Every club
they're
is
all
numbered.
different. Oh,
They all have numbers
4,
on them.
This is 5, this is 6, this is par.
Pitch.
Pitch, okay.
Pitching wedge.
Pitching wedge.
Yes.
What does it do? Is that what I use to start off
Okay.
or?
So let's, depending on which hole, but for major holes, for all the long holes, par 4, par 5, you start with something called the driver.
The driver.
Right.
Oh,
So-
it's very slim.
Yeah. But this takes you the furthest on the course.
I see.
This gives you the longest ball, the longest shot.
Uh-huh.
So this can take you to about 250, 300, 350 yards.
Wow.
So if you're playing like a 500 yards, you start with this. After hitting the 300 yards, you've already divided the course into 2.
Okay.
And so then you come to look for which other club you have here that
Okay.
will give you the next yard that you need.
Okay. Is it intentional that they're all divided?
Well, they all have different places, just so that I know where to pick from.
Okay.
Like different golf bags and different arrangements.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
But standard, you need about 13 golf clubs in your bag to play a standard golf tournament.
13.
Yes. You most have to concentrate when playing golf is the fairways and the rough.
Okay.
You try to avoid the roughs. You
Mhm.
try to avoid water hazards. You try to avoid sand bunkers. You try to play on the fairway.
Okay.
Just like life, try to do what is right,
Mhm.
and you're given opportunities.
Yeah.
If you stay on the fairway, you're allowed to mark your ball, tee your ball. So
Okay.
here you find a preferred place to place your ball
Mhm.
and able to help you hit a better stroke.
Okay.
So assuming that is your ball, you're going to take the stance again. Remember what we did on the tee box?
Yeah.
Yes, keep that same stance. Take your focus. Where do you want to take the ball? And then you stand in alignment to that direction.
Okay.
So you hold it firm, you go away from the ball, and then do your practice. Remember, 1, 2. Okay, so now you're trying to take the ball here, so you didn't need all of that heavy stroke.
Okay.
You need to measure your strength to be able to carry the ball to where the pin is.
Okay.
But keep your eye on the ball. Remember the exact thing you did on the tee ball.
Yes,
keep
please.
your eye on the ball. Don't
Yes,
look at where
please.
the ball is going. Just hold the club firm and come 1 and pick the ball.
Okay. Ow!
That was a practice, so you always have to make sure you're closer to the ball.
Okay.
Good. So look at the ball, same, don't be scared. The ball is going to be at a safe place for you.
Okay.
So 1, and then you come down. Okay. It's all right.
There wasn't much power.
You took your eyes off the ball.
Yeah.
Look at the ball. So that's where you finish it.
Yeah.
And so assuming that was mine.
Oh. Okay, just gently. Yay.
So I hit 3 times, and
And
so
then-
that is a par.
Okay.
And so you would probably be hitting 1 over because you missed the first one
Yeah.
and the second one. So
Yeah.
once you put it in, you count the number of strokes you hit.
Yeah.
And then so that's golf for you.
Well, this is fun. And if this is my first time, I think I should, take
come.
time and learn.
Yes, yes.
Not
Just
only
show
me,
up.
but everybody else.
Everyone else. I mean, golf is for everyone. What I have read and what I've heard experts in the field say is in the next 5 years, if you're a corporate executive and you're not playing golf, you'll be left out of the conversations. Because the decisions will be made on the golf course. Because they have
True.
4 hours to play around. And you only need a few hours to hit the ball. So what do you do with the remaining hours?
Have a conversation.
Have a conversation.
Yes.
Talk about things that will change the business, the organization in Ghana. So if you see us playing golf, it's not because we're having fun, because it's part of our work.
And it's a lot of
And
exercise.
it's a lot of exercise.
Yes.
And it keeps you well, it keeps you psychologically well. Mentally, you have to stay focused. So from your head down to your toe, by the time you're done with an 18-hole golf course, you should have practiced and exercised your body.
Indeed, playing golf is quite the experience. The feeling of being able to swing that tiny ball with precision and focus to get it to land at the right spot on the greens is that of pure excitement. It's the game I believe we all should give it a go.
Did you see my short? Well, disclaimer, I have never played golf in my whole entire life. Yes, that was my first time, and trust me, I had a good time. I think it's a sport that we should all try out, right? Yeah, now that you know what golf is all about. Now, moving away from golf, we move to a different kind of sport. Well, it's not originally Ghanaian, like the way golf is. It's actually Japanese, and it's a way of the samurai, but without weapons. Now, karate is something I've always loved, but because of certain things, I've never tried it before. So I went to one of my favorite people. He's a Renshi, and he's here in Ghana, actually one of the highest when it comes to karate. And we found out more about the art of karate, the way of the samurai.
The world over, most of the sporting disciplines we love and enjoy so much are all borrowed from other cultures as civilization emerged. Decades ago, physical activity that we know and call sports had early links with rituals, warfare, and entertainment. But with the emergence of civilization, some cultures adopted these physical activities, now sports, for the entertainment and keeping the body fit. One of such physical activities that has now become a sporting discipline is karate. Karate, a Japanese martial arts sporting discipline, has over 130 million following worldwide. Out of that 130 million people are Ghanaians who practice and live this art form. It's one sporting discipline that keeps the body in shape, teaches you self-defense, and has a way of calming a hot head down. But just like golf, most people have the notion that karate is meant for a sect of people or it's a dangerous sport to try. Well, dangerous sports or it being for a select few never stopped us on the Outlook team from uncovering and learning anything.
In the traditional karate setting, they have what they call the instructor's license or the instructor's licenses. Okay. So they have a sensei, a renshi, a kyoshi, and then a hanshi. So based on usually the sensei is from third degree black belt. So the black belt, the normal black belt is a first degree black belt. Then 2 years after you earn the first degree, you go to the second degree. 3 years after that,
3 years.
After the second degree, you go to the third degree. So the sensei is a title for somebody who is a certified teacher.
Wow.
Then from there, at 5th degree black belt or 6th degree black belt, you become a renshi.
Wow.
7th degree to 8th degree, you become a kyoshi. And then 9th degree upwards, it ends at 10 anyway. 9th degree upwards, you become a hanshi. So the hanshi is a final instructor's license that somebody can earn.
Wow, and that takes a lot of time to build up to that.
I think within the black belts alone, it takes up to about 35 to 40 years.
So my dreams of becoming a black belt holder has to wait?
No, so from novice to black belt in a structured system, it will take about 4 years.
4 years?
Yes.
Well, that's enough time to learn a lot.
And within the 4 years, literally every 3 months, you take an exam. A grading, we call it grading.
Yeah, the grading, yes.
The grading, yes.
Okay. Oh, Renshi, can we sit down? You said you're going to teach me how to sit. Can we sit and have this conversation?
So,
okay, cool.
There are 2 ways of sitting in the karate class. They have the formal sitting.
Formal.
It's called seiza.
Seiza.
I don't know if you watch some of the Japanese series.
Sometimes.
You see they sit with their feet bent.
Yeah.
It's called the seiza.
Seiza.
Then they have the informal sitting position. It's called the agura.
Agura.
Okay, so...
Can we try the agura?
We'll try the agura for you. Cool. I'll try and sit in the seiza. So I'll demonstrate how the seiza looks like. So it follows a certain pattern. As we call it, this is a martial art. So it has an art or a tradition that is being borrowed.
Okay.
That we have to emulate. Okay. So I go on my knees first.
Yeah.
Then my left leg, which is considered the weaker side, gives in first.
Yeah.
To the left hand. So I go with the right afterwards. Then I fold the feet in and I sit.
So this is?
This is seiza.
Seiza. That looks difficult.
Yes. So if you are not used to this, if you sit here for a long time, you cut out the blood.
Flow to your legs.
To the legs.
Wow.
The reason is that it's also good for meditation if you have to learn to meditate, because you cut out nerve supply to the legs, and more blood flows to the brain. Okay, so when you are doing the breathe in, breathe out, the body benefits more.
Okay.
So from this position, you can just transition to the Agba. So this is
this is the fun one.
I practice Shotokan.
Shotokan
karate. I've also practiced Goju-ryu karate. Okay. The Shotokan karate is the most popular karate style. Okay, and it's what the father of modern day karate, Jichen Funakoshi, founded. Yes.
Wow.
For me, the most important thing you learn from karate is mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Yes, how to be able to focus. For me, the most important thing karate teaches. And then you tend to apply all these small concepts to every area of your life. And you get a lot of benefits from it.
The world of sports, aside influencing people to live healthy and active lifestyles, it plays an important role in bringing people from all walks of life together. And that's what exactly the art of karate is doing.
Now, that was some great education, and I'm really taking it further. Since that day, I've been trying my hands at it, and probably I might be heading to my next belt. That is actually yellow. Yes, white is pure, and I enjoy that. Let's take a quick break. When I come back, I have one more exciting thing for you.
Wait to get home to another episode of breathtaking drama. Yeah, no, wait to get home and watch reality shows that get you on the edge. And all the action-kicking movies. Sounds like a plan. Oh wait, there's more. I need to get home to watch breathtaking drama reality shows that have no chill, action-kicking movies, cartoons that keep my baby smiling, watch music videos, and WWE with my superstar. Sounds like everything.
There's a lot to watch on GoTV. Your favorite series, talkies, movies, and kid shows are all in one destination. So get and stay connected to GoTV.
Up close on Reason is Jesus. My name is P.P. Fulton, the Christocentrica.
And welcome back from the break. This is Outlook on Joy News TV, also on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. Well, if you just joined us, well, we've done some pretty exciting stuff that you missed out. But let me recap a bit for you. We did some things about golf, and I almost hit one in the hole. And then we learned more about karate. Trust me, I found out that karate is for everyone. Whether you're disabled, you're blind, you can't walk, it's for everyone. And it's actually good for wellness. You know, we spoke about that. Anyway, let's dive into our next story and our final one at that. Well, there's some games that put us together, that help us build teamwork, like football or volleyball or basketball. Now, this kind of teamwork building, when it comes to this particular game, is different altogether. Well, some people will say it's dangerous and everything, but when you pull out put together, you can do wonders. Well, I decided to try paintballing. Somebody will say it's geeky, but watch this out. You will love it.
But then it's more of a mental exercise and a physical exercise rather than just shooting here.
Every sporting discipline, aside being entertaining, being used to maintain and improve physical skill, is competitive. Sports, whether we like it or not, is competitive. It doesn't matter whether the participants in the various competitive games play as individuals or in teams. It can get aggressive and even fierce sometimes. But some sports are just to foster teamwork skills and socialization amongst ourselves. When the opportunity arises, one of such competitive sports is paintball. Paintball is a competitive team shooting sport in which players eliminate opponents from playing by hitting them with the spherical dye-filled gelatin capsules called paintballs that break upon impact. Some people seem to be skeptical, especially about the idea of the guns and the paintball capsules that will hit you. Well, sometimes you have to be a bit daring, and that's exactly what we, the Outlook team, did.
So this is paintball, and then this is the paintball gun. So it's literally a shooting game.
A shooting game?
Yeah.
But when you say shooting, people get scared, like, oh, it's dangerous. Yeah. Oh my, but is it dangerous?
No, it isn't really dangerous. That's why we have our safety, equipment that assists you. I mean, it helps you stay safe. But then it's more of a mental exercise and a physical exercise rather than just shooting here.
Mental, physical exercise. Tell me, let's break it down.
Right. So normally, when you see our arenas, we have it here. We have different games that we hold on it.
Okay.
So I mean, they have games like Defend the Castle. We have Capture the Flag, Stronghold, etc. All of these games have different rules, and so the idea is to win the game. Now, your team or you need to devise a strategy which is going to help you shoot and win the game. So if you consider it as only shooting, you're going to run out of bullets.
Yeah.
And if you actually think and plan well, then you can win. You know how to reserve your energy, you know when to run, when to hold back, all of that. So it's a lot more than just shooting.
But I hear strategy, I hear coming together, teamwork.
Yeah.
And then what else am I missing? Bonding.
Physical, bonding as well.
And then physical exercise. That means you're running. It's more of it's entertaining and exercising at the same time.
Very recreational.
But I'm excited because looking at everything, I get excited when I see things like this.
Yeah.
But this is something that anybody can do, or there's an age limit to it?
So the age limit is 13 plus.
Oh.
So 13 and above. Yeah, that's right.
But it's something that's good for family, friends.
Yeah, we have a lot of families coming in, so it's good for families, friends, corporate organizations, all of that.
Wow.
Just about anybody.
I'm excited. Now, tell me, what does this do?
Okay, so that's the CO2 cylinder. You know how a gun works? It needs firepower or pressure in order to, when you hit the trigger, is able to move the bullet towards the target. So this CO2 cylinder